Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so I have a very good game for you right now, and it is between Magnus Wesley So playing the white pieces, and Magnus Carlsen playing the black pieces, and it was actually played 2 years ago at the Altibox Norway chess, so for 2018. So it's not crazy old. It's fairly recent, but it's quite a game. It's very I want to say Karpovish. For those of you guys out there that know who Anatoly Karpov is, he was one of the best players, especially in the 60s and 70s, going up into 1975 when he by default won the World Chess Championship in 1975. So as you guys know, Bobby Fischer played arguably the greatest world championship match between Boris Spassky and Reykjavik, Iceland, in 1972. Definitely put chess on the map for real. He basically just kind of went ghost. He didn't defend his title in 1975, so Anatoly Karpov won it by default. But the way that Anatoly Karpov played, he wasn't the best player in a lot of people's list, but he can definitely positionally Boa Constrict you to death. And then so this game right here, it has Boa Constrictor written all over it. So if you're ready, I'm also going to be putting the results, the link to the results page. For those of you who want to go check out the results of the Alta Box for 2018, Wesley So, I believe he was like fifth in that. So not crazy high, but he still was in the middle of the pack there with the best players in the world. Like I said, I'll be putting that link down there. So if you want to go check it out, feel free. If you guys are ready, let's go ahead and take a look and see what we have in this game. All right, so we have a D4. All right, D5, C4. So we have like some Queen's Gambit type of possibilities, accepted, decline, maybe a Slav type situation. All right, so we have C6, so we have the Slav. All right, so we have pawn takes D5, pawn takes D5. So we have the Slav exchange variation. All right, bishop to F4, just getting that bishop on a good central square. That's about the best, as best you can do. With the bishop is putting it, like C4, F4, stuff like that. All right, so we have knight to F6, knight to C3, trying to get some control over the center here. All right, knight to C6, knight to F3. Just doing some good development. I mean, you guys see that they have these knights, right here on, they're pretty much ideal squares. It's not bad to put them on like, the second rank, but this being on the third rank here just like maximizes their their influence into the game and their control over the center and everything. All right, so we have A6. We definitely don't want any knight B5 stuff happening, because as you guys see, this bishop is controlling this square. So if the knight has the ability to hop into that square, it's lights out. Heading into Fork City. All right, so we have rook to C1. All right, bishop to F5. All right, so we have E3. All right, rook to C8 and bishop to E2. And as you guys can see, the development for both sides is looking just real beautiful. You have, pretty much every single piece of white's developed. So you kind of really only have like two moves until you get, fully developed. You might have like a queen movement somewhere. Then you got castles and stuff. And I mean, the same thing for black. I mean, you have either this or that pawn. And bishop moving, and then you have the king getting tucked into the corner. So by all accounts, white and black are both playing very solidly. So it's definitely not like some of the games that I showed you guys in the past where somebody's just never castling or they're moving pieces all over the place. And so this is definitely ideally where you want to be when you're developing your pieces. And so remember, guys, no matter who you are, what level you're playing at, you can never neglect opening principles or just general, chess fundamentals. All right, so we have E6. Like I said, just going ahead and getting that, freeing that bishop up to move. All right, so we have castles. All right, knight to D7, knight to A4. It might look a little bit strange with those two knight moves, but right now what we're doing for white and black, with these knights and this pawn and the rooks and everything, just basically all of black and white's movements is we're fighting for this C5 square here. Ideally what we want to do with our knight is try to pop it into, maybe one of these two squares here. And so c5 is the most logical place because, you know, of course, if you play c5 and there's nothing contesting it, I mean, you definitely can't do a, you know, a b6 type of push because, I mean, this pawn just dropped. So, you know, it can be a pretty juicy square. All right, so we have bishop to e7, a3. Just making sure that, you know, we don't have any just making sure that we don't have any, you know, like, you know, bishop g5, bishop g4 pins, and also just kind of creating, you know, loot for our king to be able to come up, you know, just in case, you know, you never want to have back rank issues and stuff, you know. All right, so we have castles. All right, so we have a3. You know, just you know, same thing with the bishop on this side. You know, you're just trying to restrict, you know, the squares that this bishop and this knight and stuff can come to. So like I said before, guys, I mean, you know, you definitely want to push your own agenda, but you definitely want to be in a situation where you're trying to restrict your opponent's movements as much as possible, because as much as being, you know, an offensive player is effective, it's just as effective to restrict your opponent's ability to move their pieces. So you got to keep that in mind, guys. All right, so we have knight to a5. All right, so we have knight to c5. All right, so what I want to do here, guys, is I actually want to, you know, for those of you that want to go ahead and pause the video and see as black, you know, what kind of moves that you would be considering, and if you want to just catch up with us in a second, we'll go ahead and be waiting for you here. All right, cool. All right, so now that you guys are back, you know, I was wondering if so before we get you know, into the move that was played, I was wondering if any of you guys were you know, kind of doing like a piece count and an attack count in this square, and you were noticing, okay, so we have knight takes, we have bishop here, we have rook here. Like, it looks like we, you know, we can just win a pawn, right? You know, we have like all our pieces kind of, you know, hitting this square, and then, you know, they only have the pawn and the rook and stuff, you know, attacking that square, right? Well, so let's go ahead and take a look and see what that type of a variation would look like. Now, there's two different main variations that you would go into in this particular situation. And so, you know, like some of you guys might have been thinking, you know, we have knight takes c5, and then, you know, we'll have pawn takes c5, right? So it's like, okay, you know what? I could take with the rook. You know, I could take with the bishop. You know, I'm going to be winning a pawn here, right? Well, in this particular situation, you actually wouldn't be winning a pawn. And so let's just say, for example, you know, we go ahead and take with the bishop, right? Because you're thinking, you know, I can back my bishop up somewhere and I'm good, right? You know, unfortunately, you have to worry about this move here, b4. And so now you're in fork city, because, you know, pawns have the ability to fork too. So, you know, if we back up and, you know, take a look at the same thing for black, you pretty much end up being in the same position, just trading down a little bit of extra piece. So you have rook takes, bishop takes, and then you have that same fork ability. And so something I want you guys to pay attention to, it's a little bit harder to see when you're calculating, but, you know, be paying attention to whenever you're putting any of your minor or major pieces one rank apart. So, you know, of course, it's going to be, you know, or one file apart, excuse me, one file apart, but they're on the same, they're right next to each other. And so, you know, you always have to be calculating and thinking about situations where if you put your pieces right next to each other, you know, something, you know, like a pawn or something might have the ability to fork it, or even a knight can. But I mean, of course, if you're, you know, putting a knight in let's say you put it on this square or something like that, you know, it doesn't have the ability to fork because, you know, you have a knight that's defending that square as well. So just back up here a touch. The move that was actually played in the game, one more, was knight to c4. And this is actually the novelty of the game. This position has never been seen before, so it's the very first time. You know, basically, you know, Carlsen, he saw, you know, the variations that we went into, so he was like, man, I don't even want none of that stuff. Like, let's play better chess, right? So he went ahead and played knight to c4. All right, so we have b4. All right, knight takes c5. We have d takes c5. And knight takes a3. Now, it kind of looks like you're giving up a pawn in this position, right? You're like, wait a minute, like I feel like I just lost a pawn, right? Well, not quite. So we have knight to d4, getting our knight in the position that we need it to be in, attacking this bishop, asking it what it wants to do. All right, so we have bishop to e4, and we have f3. All right, so bishop to g6, and then we have queen to b3. And so, like I said in the past, you know, this it kind of seemed like we were giving a pawn away. But due to the series of moves as white, we're going to go ahead and get that pawn back somehow. So, you know, of course, if you either go, you know, knight c4 or knight b5, you have your knight in the proper position to be able to, you know, get that pawn back. So we definitely didn't lose a pawn. So it was there was a reason for the madness, right? All right, so we have knight to c4. Let me correct this here. All right, and so we have bishop takes c4, pawn takes c4, and queen takes c4. So I mean, as you guys can see, you know, we have the same pawn count for white and for black. You know, white is actually doing slightly better as far as space goes, because if you notice all these black pawns, you know, they're kind of close to their home starting position, and you know, these white pawns have started to move a little bit further into black's, you know, into black's territory. All right, so we have queen to e8. All right, bishop to g3. Now backing up a touch here, something else that definitely is worth considering is the move e4. And you know, basically in these positions where, you know, you have a knight and a bishop against two bishops, you know, the bishops in open games can be very, very strong. So what you want to try to do is you're going to want to try to limit the movability of at least one of the bishops as much as possible. And e4 does that pretty well. If you notice, this bishop is a little bit caged in at this point now. You know, it only really kind of has one square to go to. And so, you know, like I said, it's just as much, you know, even if you're doing, you know, you're trying to play offensively, playing defensively, a lot of times it's just as good as playing offensively. So, you know, back up here. All right, so we had bishop to g3. All right, so we had e5, knight to b3. All right, bishop to e7. Now, just stopping for a second, there's something I want you guys to be thinking about. Now, you guys watch my videos before, and so you've heard me talk time and time again about, you know, attacking undefended pieces, or even attacking underdefended pieces. So I'm curious if there's a move that comes to mind that attacks just that, because you're always trying to look for the weaknesses in your opponent's position. And so moving ahead here, we have queen to d5. And so we have a double attack here. So we're attacking this pawn twice with this bishop. Let me draw the right arrow with this queen and this bishop, and then we're also attacking this pawn with the queen. And so if you ever have a chance to make a double attack, it's going to be very, very hard for your opponent to deal with. It's almost impossible to, you know, it is possible in some situations, but it's almost impossible to parry a double attack. Because it's just too much attacking, you know, to you know, and not be able, you're not going to be able to, you know, bring defense a lot of the time. So that's this case here. And so we have queen d5, like I said, attacking that pawn on b7 and the pawn on d5. And so, you know, Carlsen decides, hey, I'm going to go ahead and, you know, protect, you know, at least one of those. So he, you know, he's protecting this pawn on b7, kind of giving that e5 pawn away. So Wesley says, hey, you know, gimme, gimme, gimme. Let me snack on that, you know, delicious pawns. All right, so we have bishop to e7, and what I want you guys to do here in this position is actually I'm gonna go ahead and have you guys stop the video again if you want to, and see as black what would you do. You know, and it kind of goes into what I'm feeding off of is it goes into the you know, attacking somebody's weaknesses and stuff like that. So I'm curious how many of you guys will play into a variation in this particular position as black. So if you were black, if you want to stop the video real quick and kind of see what you would play as black, we'll be waiting for you up here. So, all right, cool. So I'm wondering how many of you guys would have come up with queen takes c4. And because it kind of seems like, you know, hey man, it's pretty much doing what, you know, what Kelvin was talking about. You know, it's a, you know, that move queen b5 is attacking this b4 pawn. I just munched on the pawn, so you know, I restored the pawn equality and everything. And, you know, I should be good, right? It's like, I mean, that's what we're trying to do all the time is, you know, play on these weaknesses. Normally, yes, but in this particular position, you're actually going to be subject to a few tempos, and they're pretty dangerous tempos. So immediately going for the pawn on b4 is going to actually be an issue after bishop to d6. Now the problem you have here is the fact that this rook is attacked, and so you have a choice either to give the rook up, you know, to lose the exchange, or to move the rook out of the way. And so I think a lot of people would be like, hey man, I don't want to lose my rook, so they move the rook over, right? And so you end up with this move here, c6. And so the problem that you have in this particular position is this bishop is discovering an attack on the queen, and you're also threatening to take pawn here. And where, you know, this rook is not going to be able to come over because this bishop is defended against it. So you definitely don't want to run into that situation there. So let's back up here. And so Magnus Carlsen, seeing that, he says, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just go bishop to e7. You know, let's go ahead and hook. Oh yeah, let's go ahead and hook that up, right? And so we have queen to d2. Now going into kind of a side variation, you know, some of you might have been like, hey man, let me just go ahead and just, you know, develop my rook, get it on the open file and stuff like that.
Unfortunately, you're going to run into either two different variations. So let's say, for example, you're in this position here. You're going to have rook f to d8. And now the major problem with this particular position is, I mean, you're gonna have to either move bishop in the way to block, right? Which is okay. But I think that maybe possibly some people might be like, you know what, like let me just back my queen up, right? You know, let me try to hold on to this pawn. And let me just kind of just back up here, right? Well, in this particular situation, you actually have a nifty little move, and you're trying to undermine the protection of this queen here. So rook to d1 is going to be just completely winning, and it's a pretty simple pretty simple concept. What you're doing here, this rook is now overloaded. It's protecting this back rank, and it's also protecting this queen. So I mean, you have a decision. You can either move this rook over and lose the queen, or move the king over, and then you're going to end up being down some material. So that's not the position that you want to go into. So queen d2 recognizes that and backs on up, and so we now have rook f to d8, but we're not in that same position we were before. All right, so now bishop to d6 is okay. All right, so we have bishop to f6. E4, like I said before with that E4 move, you know, white's goal is to try to, you know, restrict the movement of these bishops as much as possible, because they are a little bit stronger in this particular situation. So we have H6, just giving black, you know, its own luft. All right, knight to D4, bishop takes D4 check, queen takes D4, and now as white we've successfully made it to where, you know, black had to you know, give one of his bishops away, because the knight was just definitely too strong. You know, you definitely didn't want to get in a position where, you know, you moved queen back here, because, you know, you're going to have your pieces in just too defensive of a state. You know, I mean, you never really want to get in a situation where you've got your queen in a good spot and, you know, you've had to back it all the way up to, you know, the rim of the board. And so we have rook to e8. All right, so we have rook to e1, just giving extra protection on the square in case maybe, you know, you push like an f5 or something like that. So, all right, king to h7. All right, g4. And something I want you guys to notice as far as white is concerned. Now, white has a dark square bishop. And so what your goal is, you're trying to maximize the efficiency and the movability of your own bishop. So you're going to be having these pawns on light squares. And so that's why when you see this move, it makes a lot of sense because, you know, in one swift move, you're able to put this pawn on a light square itself. All right, so we have f6. You're trying to blunt the queen's ability to, you know, try to cause any type of havoc over here. All right, so we have f4, queen to c6. We have f5. So as I told you guys before, you know, this is a very like Boa Constrictor, Karpov-ish game. If you guys, I mean, you know, before, like I said, as far as these pawns being on light squares, you know, the pawn structure is perfect for you know, white's bishop to be able to, you know, have like really good movability around the board. You know, black is just really just getting pushed around. All right, so we have bishop to f7, h4, just relentlessly just throwing the attack down. All right, so we have rook to a8. All right, rook to c2, just preparing to, you know, possibly swing this rook over into this direction here. All right, so we have a5, g5. You know, just like I said, I mean, this is just like, I mean, if I was black, I wouldn't be black. Like, I mean, this is just like, you know, black is suffering. I mean, you don't need an engine. You don't need like a professional to tell you that this is like, you know, you kind of suffering. Black is kind of suffering. I mean, if you notice, like white is literally like almost all the way on the side of the board, you know, just kind of pushing black back. Black does not really have a lot that they can do in this position here. All right, so trying to get that bishop clear of, you know, pretty much getting pinned all the way down. All right, so we have g6, you know, just putting that pawn in black's throat. King to h8, b5, trying to deflect the queen away. And so, you know, now we're going to get our pawn back here coming up pretty soon. All right, queen c6. All right, rook to b6, and we have queen to c8. And so, like I said before, guys, I mean, this position here, like, I mean, it hurts to look at, man. Like, I mean, you have like basically no movability with this rook, with this queen. This bishop is like way out of play. You know, this pawn is all the way in black's throat. Like, it's just like, it makes me sad. Like, I think you guys are Wesley Soul fans out there, so y'all are gonna be like, yeah, go Wesley. But I mean, yeah, so yeah, go Wesley. But man, I would just love to be white. Like, if you just let me sit down and play white, I'm happy.
All right, so we have queen to d5, just adding just extra pressure to this pawn here. All right, so we have a4. All right, rook takes b7. So now we just snapped the pawn off the board. Just snapped on a nugget. All right, rook to we have rook to g8, and we have c6. And it is actually in this position here that Magnus Carlsen resigns. Like I said, guys, there's not really a whole lot you can do in this position. Black is just really horribly suffering. And you can see they're just kind of trying to throw this a pawn out there. But, I mean, there's not really a lot you can do in this position. And basically, I mean, the reason why you're resigning in this position, despite the fact that it looks pretty bad, let's just go through a variation real quick. And, you know, kind of show you guys what, you know, what it'll look like. So it's like, let's say, for example, you just say, hey, man, I'm going to push this pawn right here, right? Push it to a3. I'm gonna try to see if I can't get a queen or something, right? So you're going to run into this move here, c7. As you guys can see, this queen is literally stalemated, almost. There's not anywhere that the queen can really go. If you just kind of just like try to, you know, press the point home and say, I'm gonna push a2, you run into rook to b8. And, I mean... You know, we got this rook just fully penetrated on this back rank. We got this pawn protecting it. We got the bishop protecting it. You know, it's like you can try to queen. You know, like let's just say you queen. You say, hey man, I mean you're taking a queen here. You know, well okay, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna let me see. Maybe we do. I don't know. I didn't really explore this variation very much. So I mean, probably just go ahead and take one of these here. I mean, even something like that, man. It's like, I mean, the queen is leaving. Like the queen's bye-bye. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't, I mean, you know, or even if you do, I mean, you just kind of take here, you take here, you know, like there's just not a lot to go. But there was another variation I wanted to show you guys earlier in the game. We were pushing these pawns up. Let's just say, for example, in this position, we push d5, right? And so let's say, for example, the black says, hey man, let's go ahead and just take this. Well, there's so many problems with this that, I mean, this h file is about to be open. This rook is about to swing over. Like all these pieces are like, hey man, let's go ahead and kill this king. Like we don't like him, right? And so let me see here. Bam, h takes g5. So you'll have something like this, something like this. Rook comes to g2. Like I said, I mean, you have so much pressure. Not that. You have so much pressure on this position. It's like it hurts. You know, so we have I mean, I don't know, even if you let's say you push pawn or something like that, right? It's like, man, you have you have so much going on here. You know, you can take here, move the rook over. So you do something like, you know, just anything. I mean, there's just anything hurts in this position. I mean, the computer, I forgot the exact variation, but the computer actually gave in something like this. I forgot exactly what move I had made on the computer, but it's like the computer, instead of that, the computer said do that. So it's like, bruh, are you looking at the board too, like me? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Like, I mean, it wants you to do this so you can do this, and it's like somehow it's supposed to be like, I mean, you know the position is bad. When the computer says, yeah, just give your queen away. No. Okay, so that is the game, guys. I appreciate you guys stopping by, checking out my video. I'm just kind of still doing some Wesley So type stuff. You know, I figure I'll do some little kind of series on Wesley So and Magnus Carlsen. So I'm just kind of going through the database, looking at some of the games they played and stuff. So I definitely wanted to start that off with giving you a Wesley So win. You know, Magnus Carlsen is a phenomenal player. So there's not a lot of wins by Wesley So. You know, it's more so in Magnus Carlsen's favor. You know, like I said, I wanted to give you guys some, you know, just kind of like some games that they played and stuff like that. It seems like Magnus Carlsen versus Wesley So is a pretty popular, you know, those are pretty popular games. So I'll be doing that for a little bit. But if you have any other games you want me to try to cover, I'll definitely look into them and see what's going on with them. And just go ahead and give me a like and a subscribe, guys, and tell your friends, your fam, your boo, let them know what's good. And I will see you guys in the next video. I appreciate it.